all of us would aspire to and live by in country, and that is that we would approach our art with integrity.
When fans picture Johnny Cash, they see the man in black standing tall with his deep baritone and unwavering gaze, the outlaw icon who sang fulsome prison blues, the musical maverick who crossed genre boundaries while maintaining his authentic country roots. But behind that stoic exterior and straightforward stage presence was a man with strong opinions about musical integrity and artistic authenticity. While Cash maintained a gracious public persona throughout most of his career, those in his inner circle witnessed moments when his diplomatic veneer cracked, revealing sharp criticisms of performers who violated his stringent code of musical honesty. John had very clear ideas about what constituted real music, revealed longtime guitarist Bob Wooten in a rare 2010 interview. He didn't suffer fools or phonies, and he certainly never held back his opinions in private. From heated comments about counterfeit country acts to dismissive remarks about rock bands that lacked substance, Cash's private opinions exposed a fiercely protective attitude toward the musical traditions he considered sacred. His musical feuds weren't just personal grievances. They reflected fundamental disagreements about artistic integrity, emotional truth, and what American music should ultimately represent. Today, we're counting down the 6 bands that Johnny Cash reportedly couldn't stand, and why even some of music's biggest names found themselves on the receiving end of the legendary Man in Black's unfiltered criticism. 6. The Monkees. Our countdown begins with the manufactured pop group that represented everything Cash reportedly despised about the music industry's commercial machinations. While the Monkees eventually gained respect for their musical contributions, Cash allegedly viewed them as the embodiment of style over substance. According to Cash's longtime bass player Marshall Grant, the Man in Black's disdain emerged when the Monkees television show premiered in 1966. Johnny watched half an episode and reportedly told me, "This isn't a band, it's a marketing scheme with haircuts," Grant claimed in his memoir. This blunt assessment reflected Cash's lifelong suspicion of image-driven acts. The animosity deepened when the Monkees began dominating charts previously held by more traditional artists. June Carter Cash recalled in a family interview that during a 1967 tour stop, Johnny spotted a Monkees album display that had replaced several country artists. John allegedly pointed at it and said, "That right there is everything that's wrong with music. Pretty boys playing make-believe for television when real musicians can't get shelf space." What reportedly bothered Cash most wasn't just their manufactured origins, but their divergence from what he considered authentic American musical traditions. Producer Jack Clement claimed that after hearing Last Train to Clarksville, Cash supposedly remarked, "They're not just copying the Beatles, they're making a copy of a copy. There's nothing of America left in it." The final irony came years later when Monkees member Mike Nesmith established himself as a respected country rock pioneer. When asked about this development in a 1990s interview, Cash allegedly offered backhanded approval. Nesmith finally figured out there's more to music than what a television producer tells you to play. Better late than never, I suppose. 5. The Beach Boys. Few would expect tension between Johnny Cash and the Beach Boys, but according to those close to the Man in Black, he harbored a particular distaste for the California group's sun-soaked image and what he perceived as their superficial lyrical concerns. According to Cash's tour manager Lou Robin, the animosity began when Cash first heard "Surfin' USA" on the radio during a 1963 California tour. Johnny allegedly turned to June and said, "Listen to that. Grown men singing about going to the beach like they're reading from a tourist brochure. Meanwhile, people are starving and fighting wars," Robin revealed in a 2011 documentary. This criticism reflected Cash's belief that music should address substantive human experiences. The philosophical divide deepened as both acts competed for radio play and chart positions. While Cash sang about prison, addiction, and spiritual struggle, the Beach Boys celebrated cars, girls, and surf culture. Cash's drummer W.S. Holland claimed after seeing the group on television in 1965, Cash reportedly commented, Those boys haven't lived enough life to have earned the right to anyone's attention. They're selling a fantasy that doesn't exist for most Americans. What reportedly irritated Cash most was the contrast between the Beach Boys' polished harmonies and what he considered their lack of emotional depth. Producer Brian Ahern quoted Cash's alleged assessment. "All those pretty voices stacked up singing about nothing at all. It's like using a sledgehammer to put in a thumbtack." Number 4. Kiss. The theatrical hard rock of Kiss represented a fundamental clash with Johnny Cash's musical values, creating what those close to him described as one of his most visceral, negative reactions to any popular act of the 1970s. According to Cash's son, John Carter Cash, his father's first exposure to Kiss came during a 1975 television performance. Dad watched them for about 30 seconds before allegedly saying, "This isn't music. It's a damned Halloween party with amplifiers," the younger Cash recalled in his family memoir. This immediate dismissal reflected Cash's lifelong emphasis on musical substance over spectacle. The philosophical divide couldn't have been wider. While Cash built his career on autobiographical storytelling and emotional authenticity, Kiss constructed elaborate personas and prioritized visual shock value. Cash's longtime producer Jack Clement claimed after seeing Kiss's elaborate stage show in a music magazine, Cash supposedly remarked, "When you need to breathe fire and wear makeup to get people's attention, you've already admitted you don't have anything worth saying." What reportedly frustrated Cash most was Kiss's commercial success during a period when traditional country artists were struggling for airplay. June Carter Cash noted that during a mid-70s tour, Johnny allegedly complained, "Kids are spending their money to watch grown men in Halloween costumes while songwriters who actually have something to say can't get a record deal." That's not progress. Band number 3. Fleetwood Mack. The tension between Johnny Cash and Fleetwood Mack highlights a fascinating clash between country traditionalism and 1970s California rock excess. According to those in Cash's circle, he viewed the band, particularly during their Rumors-era commercial peak, as emblematic of the music industry's decadent self-absorption. Cash's first significant exposure to Fleetwood Mack reportedly came during their massive commercial breakthrough in 1977. His daughter Roseanne Cash recalled in interviews that her father's reaction to Dreams playing on the radio was less than enthusiastic. Dad allegedly said, "So this is what happens when rich hippies make music about their own divorce dramas while the rest of the country struggles to pay bills." This criticism reflected Cash's populist perspective on musical relevance. The philosophical divide centered on lifestyle as much as music. While Cash had overcome his own substance abuse issues and embraced sobriety and spirituality, Fleetwood Mac's cocaine-fueled recording sessions and internal romantic entanglements represented a Hollywood excess he reportedly disdained. Producer Brian Ahern claimed Cash once remarked after declining an industry party where the band would be present, "I battled my demons in private and sang about the struggle honestly. They're parading their weaknesses like achievements and selling millions for it." What supposedly bothered Cash most was what he perceived as the band's emotional self-indulgence. While he wrote songs championing prisoners, Native Americans, and the working class, Fleetwood Mac's inward-focused relationship narratives struck him as privileged navel-gazing. His bass player Marshall Grant quoted Cash's alleged assessment, "They've got the whole world's attention, and all they can think to talk about is their own tangled bedsheets. What a waste of a platform." Band number 2. Leonard Skynard. The tension between Johnny Cash and Southern rock pioneers. Leonard Skynard represents one of music history's most fascinating ideological divides. Despite shared Southern roots and working-class themes, those close to Cash claim he viewed the band with particular disdain, specifically for their embrace of Confederate imagery and what he perceived as their commercialization of Southern identity. According to Cash's autobiography co-author Patrick Carr, Cash's frustration emerged after hearing the band's anthemic Sweet Home Alabama in 1974. "Johnny allegedly told me, 'They're selling a cartoon version of the South that ignores all its complexity and pain,'" Carr revealed in later interviews. This criticism reflected Cash's nuanced relationship with his own Southern heritage and his evolving views on racial justice. The philosophical divide deepened around the band's use of the Confederate flag, a symbol Cash had deliberately avoided throughout his career. His longtime drummer W.S. Holland claimed after seeing Skynard's stage show, Cash reportedly commented, "They're wrapping themselves in a flag that represents pain and division for half the country. That's not rebellion. That's just being willfully ignorant." What reportedly bothered Cash most was what he perceived as the band's simplistic portrayal of Southern identity at a time when the region was struggling through complex social changes. Producer Rick Rubin, who worked with Cash in his later years, quoted the Man in Black's supposed assessment. "Those boys are selling a Southern caricature that lets people avoid thinking about the real South with all its contradictions and challenges." Number 1, the Eagles. At the top of our countdown sits the band that reportedly drew Johnny Cash's most sustained criticism, the Eagles, whose polished country rock sound and corporate success represented everything the Man in Black viewed as inauthentic about the commercialization of country music influences. According to Cash's longtime manager Lou Robin, the animosity began when the Eagles emerged as leaders of the California country rock scene in the early 1970s. Johnny allegedly heard "Peaceful Easy Feeling" and told me, "That's not country music. That's what happens when rock musicians think wearing a bolo tie makes them understand rural America," Robin claimed in his memoir. This blunt assessment reflected Cash's protective attitude toward country music traditions. The philosophical divide deepened with the Eagles' massive success during a period when traditional country artists struggled for mainstream recognition. June Carter Cash recalled her husband's frustration during this era. John reportedly said, "They're skimming the surface of country music, taking its sounds, but leaving behind all its heart and soul, and making millions doing it."